We're talking first about Ollie Oxley and the ghost. And what I want to know, and what I think kids want to know, because everybody asks about it, is where did your idea for this book come from? Specifically, was there a moment where you thought, when you think back, that you can identify as the moment you started to like formulate the idea that then became this book?
Yes, there actually was. I had moved into a new house in Old Folsom, which is the historic district of Folsom. And the house that we moved into, I went into the backyard and there was an old olive tree. And in the olive tree, there was a piece of metal that had like grown with the tree and it had twisted and molded around the trunk. And I just thought that is cool. What a cool like thing to see. And I thought, gosh, that's probably like 100 years old or something. And that's like started me thinking about the story. And it just kind of went from there. It was just like, ooh, that's fascinating. And then I just kind of started adding on to it. I am where I lived, anytime I would go out for a walk, and at the time my son was a baby, I would take him on a walk and things would always present themselves that would like lend to the story. And so Ollie Oxley and the Ghost is about a search for lost gold. A boy meets a ghost. He moves to this new town, meets a ghost. And then this series of events leads to him searching for lost gold. And one of the times I was on a walk in the park and I met a modern day prospector. And he had like a little metal detector and he started telling me how he had made his fortune searching for lost gold. And so that, that's how that got added into it. And he had actually found like a nugget the size of a basketball.
Really?
And so, yes, he bought like 2 houses in Folsom with it. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy. So when you were walking around Folsom and you're kind of thinking about this idea, did you write stuff down in a notebook? Did you store it all in your head? Did you kind of just say, okay, mental note, I think I want to use this, and then come back later and really check it out? Like, what was your process for kind of keeping track of those things that you were going to use in the story?
I'm not that organized. Like, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I came back and wrote notes and did things, but it was, it felt like every time I came to a point in the story, and I think maybe because I was looking for it, it was like the universe would present me with something that would help with the story. Like one day I was trying to figure out, I had the antagonist. I'm like, where is she gonna live? She's kind of a little snot and she should probably have like a weird house or something. I don't know. And so I was on a walk and there was a man standing in his front yard and I just started talking to him, and his house was this like old lime green house. And it's probably, it was a couple hundred years old. And he's just started talking to me. And he's like, yeah, this was the original courthouse in the 1800s. And in the 1800s, they would have the trials on the first floor. And if they were convicted, they would just take them right downstairs into the basement and hang up.
Oh my God, in the house.
Oh, he let me go. He let me go in the house. He's like, come on, do you want to see inside the house? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And so we went inside the house and it was really small and creepy and eerie. And then he took me down. The basement was like the size of a walk-in closet, and it was like all brick, and it just, the smell, and it was just the air was, it was just creepy. And I'm like, oh my God, this is her house. And so if you read my book, that's pretty much how I describe it, that this is what happened in the house, and it's a lime green house. And so, but it literally, like, I felt like every time I went out for a walk, something that would present itself that would feel like a need at that moment. So, and there was a neighbor I didn't like that was, oh my gosh, I probably shouldn't say this because I don't live there anymore. She became the antagonist mom, and so there's like across.
Do you tend to use people that you've met?
Yes.
Or parts of them?
Yes. Sometimes it's a conglomeration of people. But sometimes I just look at somebody, usually it's like the bullies, the mean people. They don't need any, like, I don't even need to really add on to them because they're already a caricature kind of anyway.
No.
You know, if they're being mean, it's like, well, you're easy. You're presenting me with material that's just, you know,
Right.
it's just too good to pass up. Like the bully in my book has a fake accent. Well, I kind of fashioned her off of somebody I knew in real life that had a fake accent because she thought it was really exotic and she was really mean. So she, you know, I just use different people, but yeah. So it was all in that neighborhood. Like every time I went for a walk, I found something new.
That is very cool. And to just be aware of what you're seeing, you know,
Yeah.
like talking on the phone or you're listening to a podcast or music or whatever, sometimes you go right by those things that might be pivotal to the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, I think, you know, and being open to it. Like I'm one of those people, you know me, I'm one of those people that believes like the universe will present itself to you. You know, if you're looking for it and you need an answer, it will generally come to you. So sometimes that doesn't work, but if I'm really working on something, it generally presents itself. And I think like
optimistic. You're
right.
an optimistic person.
Well, I was listening to Judy Bloom, her master class. And one of the things she was talking about, like if you're stuck and you can't think of what to write, go for a walk, like go out there and get out there. And she said the one thing that when I see people out for a walk and they've got their headphones on and they're listening to music, I always think, oh, how sad you're not resting with your own thoughts. Like you're not just out there thinking your own thoughts. And so that reminded me, like I need to just stop because I usually play music when I go for a run or go for a walk, which P.S. it's Taylor Swift who I listen to. So anyway, so I just stopped listening to music because I'm like, you know what, this is when the best ideas usually do happen, is when you're stepping away from your computer and letting your brain think. And like listening to other people around you, like conversations that you hear, you know, we're eavesdroppers.
I'm a notorious eavesdropper.
I know.
I'm not paying attention to my own conversation because I'm too busy listening to the people behind me.
I know.
It's super annoying for the people who are sitting with me. As you
know, we eavesdrop together.
That's true. All right, so we're going to stay with the idea of ideas.
Okay.
What are you working on now? What is your work in progress? What is coming down the pike?
Well, let's see. I've started on a new middle grade, and it's been slow chugging. I can't even lie to you. And so it's been like slowly percolating. But again, like when I was listening to Judy Bloom the other day, she was like, sometimes I have to let it percolate inside my brain for a while. And I kind of need to do that. It took me a while to get Ollie Oxley out of my head. I wish I could be like you and just, you're so, you know, have that ability to go from one book to the next. Me, it's like my brain can't handle it. I wrote a chapter book series after Ollie Oxley that's out on submission right now. And then I took this huge break, and then I worked some more on, you know, a couple other projects. And then this is the one that I've started on that I think I'm starting to figure out the voice. I couldn't figure out like what his motivation was, because it sounded whiny every time I sat down to write it. And it kind of sounded like Ollie Oxley again. I'm like, oh my God, it's just Ollie Oxley with a different name. And so, which is annoying. And so I'm trying to like change that up, and I think I finally figured it out. So this one, it's another ghost story, and I apparently like ghosts, and this one has 3 ghosts in it though. And so it's the idea started coming to me was there was a kid at my son's school that I knew was kind of a notorious bully. And there had been some things going on at the school, and I kept on hearing about it from different parents. And one day I saw this kid at Target, and it was probably like an hour after school got out, and Target's about a mile away from from the middle school. And I could see, at first I saw him and I thought, oh, there's that, that kid that's being mean to everyone. And then I realized that he was scared. Like I could see the look on his face, and he was like walking, he was pacing, he still had his school backpack on. He was walking in and out of Target, and he was trying to call someone. And I realized pretty quickly that he was scared. Nobody had come to pick him up. And so it just made me start thinking, like, what's his story? What's, we all have these things like, oh, the bully's mean, but what's their backstory? What's going on with them to make them be mean? And so I just, I went out to my car, and you know me, I'm going to cry now. I started crying.
We can pause for tears.
No. And so it made me start thinking about a story. And that's where this next story is coming from.
Do you have, like, moments like that are either emotional or dramatic kind of lodge themselves in your head, and that if you can't get rid of it, then it's probably something that you are going to use? Do you ever have that sensation?
Yes. And that's what happened, because I couldn't figure out what the next story was going to be. Nothing was coming to me after I'd written the chapter book series is, it involves a pug, a crime solving pug. And my pug had just died. So I was heartbroken. And so I wrote this story, about a pug. And it kind of like helped me work through my sadness, because I was, I'm like, I'm going to dedicate this book to Hank. This is what's happening. And so it was, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do for my middle grade. And I tried a couple different things. Some of them I ran by you, and nothing stuck. Like I'd start to write it, and I'm like, this just doesn't mean anything. I just don't care about it. And so when I saw this little boy, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the story. Somewhere in here is the story. And so it's not about him, but there's a character that's in there that is part of the story. And that will give, he provides me with a little backstory. So it was just one of those moments where it really affected me, and I care about him. Like even now, I'm just like, oh, I see him, like when I drop my son off at school, and I'm like, oh, I just want to go hug him, because I just feel so bad for him. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that kind of story came from. And so that's, he's not the main character, so I had to figure out the main character's motivation and what's he going to do? How's he going to interact with this kid who was kind of the catalyst for my story. So that's where that one came from.
See, it's so amazing to me that these little moments that occur can really spin up into something so much bigger, and it can go in so many different directions. It's a cool lesson, I think, for anybody who aspires to be a writer, to pay attention to your environment, because everything you need is there, just waiting to like pluck it off the tree. Okay, now is the moment that you get to give a shout out about something that you're reading that you're enjoying.
Okay, well, there are a couple books I'm reading, and but I'm going to talk about this one because this is one of my favorite authors. This is The Copycat by Wendy McLeod McKnight. And I will just say it's a wonderful book. I'm loving it. Her storytelling is fantastic. And that's a really good book. And then another book that I'm reading, and I don't have it right in front of me, is The Artifact Hunters by Janet Fox. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So it's a lot of magic and mystery and history, and I'm almost done with it. It's it's an advanced copy, so it's not out until August. And that one I'm giddy over. And where is it? I can't find it. Oh, there it is. I should be more prepared. This is the first one in her book. That was the first book before The Artifact Hunter. So it's The Charmed Children of Rookshill Castle. Cool. And so those are good. So that's kind of what I'm reading right now. I'm right at the beginning of Copycat, so I can't give you a bunch of information. Yeah, but anyway, I've read Wendy's book, The Frame Up, which is one of my favorite books from last year.
I love that one. That's a great
So
one.
good.
Super fun. All right,
So
well, thank you for Zooming with me and answering your questions about ideas. And I'm sure we'll check back in with you when you get farther along in your second ghost story.
I hope so. I hope it moves along.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.